Neriah Nolan adjusted the strap of her black heels as she stood outside the glass tower of Carrington Holdings, her heart pounding with nerves and something else she refused to name. Revenge. That was the plan. Nothing more. She took a breath, lifted her chin, and stepped through the revolving doors like a woman on a mission. Because she was. As the elevator rose, she caught her reflection in the chrome panel's smart blazer, sleek ponytail, face calm even though her stomach twisted. She was ready. 3 months ago, her sister had cried on her couch, humiliated, heartbroken, and jobless after being fired by the man who thought he could control the world, Sterling Carrington. Millionaire CEO. Ice King in a suit. He didn't fire her because she was bad at her job. He fired her because she wouldn't sleep with him. Or so her sister claimed. And Neriah believed her. She always believed her. So Neriah did what she had to. She applied for a job at Carrington Holdings. And now she had an interview with the man himself. The plan? Get hired. Earn his trust. And then ruin him. The elevator doors opened on the top floor. The air up here was different. Quieter. More expensive. A brunette assistant with a tight bun and sharp eyes looked up. "You're early," the woman said. "I like to be." The assistant nodded once and gestured down the hallway. "Mr. Carrington will see you now." Neriah stepped into the office and froze. Sterling Carrington wasn't what she expected. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the skyline like he owned it. Which, technically, he probably did. He turned when she entered, and her breath caught. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair a little too long and tired green eyes that didn't match his reputation. He looked haunted. "You're Neriah Nolan," he said, voice low, scratchy, like he hadn't slept. "Yes," she said, stepping forward, forcing herself not to show anything. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Your resume is impressive, but you don't have a background in corporate strategy." "I learn fast." "Do you?" She met his gaze, steady. "Yes." He studied her like he was trying to figure her out. "Why do you want this job?" She had rehearsed this answer. "Because I've worked with nonprofits and startups. I want to understand how power works from the top, and I want to make an impact." He didn't blink. "And you think this company will let you do that?" "I think I will." His lips twitched. Not a smile. Just interest. He nodded once. "You're hired. You start Monday." Neriah blinked. "Just like that. I don't waste time." She stood, shook his hand, ignoring the jolt that zipped up her arm. She didn't expect that, and she hated that she noticed. As she left the office, her heart pounded harder than before. Not from nerves. From something else entirely. 2 weeks in, the plan was working. Sterling gave her more access than anyone else on the team. She sat in on high-level meetings. He asked for her advice. And he watched her. Always watched her. They weren't flirting. Not really. But the tension was there. Every time they passed in the hallway. Every time he leaned close to ask her opinion. Every time their eyes met and lingered a second too long. And Neriah hated how it made her feel. "You're different," he said one evening, when they were the last two in the office. She looked up from her laptop. "How so?" "You don't try to impress me. You don't act scared of me. And you're not fake." She laughed. "That's a weird compliment." He shrugged, walking over to lean against her desk. "It's rare. That's all." Something shifted in his voice. Vulnerability. She didn't expect that either. "You always work this late?" she asked. "Only when I don't want to go home." "Why not?" He looked away. "Too quiet." She watched him for a beat. "You live alone?" "Yeah." "No wife? No girlfriend? No kids? Just a penthouse and a view?" He looked back at her. "Do you ever get tired of pretending?" She frowned. "Pretending what?" "That you're here just for the job." Her chest tightened. He leaned closer. You're smart, Neriah, but you're hiding something. She forced a smile. Aren't we all? He didn't answer, just held her gaze like he was trying to see through every wall she'd built. 2 days later, he invited her to lunch. Not in the cafeteria. A rooftop restaurant overlooking the river, with wine and a private table. This isn't a business lunch, she said as the waiter poured sparkling water. Nope. She looked at him. Then what is it? He took a sip of his drink. A chance to get to know you. She stared at him. Why? Because I like you. Her throat dried. You don't know me. I know what I see, he said gently. And I want to see more. She looked away. Her heart was beating too fast. This wasn't the plan. He reached across the table, brushing his fingers lightly across her wrist. Unless you don't feel the same. She pulled her hand back. I can't. Why not? She hesitated, then whispered, because I came here to hurt you. He froze. What? She swallowed hard. My sister worked for you. You fired her. She told me why. I believed her. I wanted payback. His face went still. Your sister's name? Neriah Nolan. He leaned back in his chair, processing. She said you fired her because she wouldn't sleep with you. His jaw clenched. That's not true. She wouldn't lie. I didn't fire her. She quit. After she accessed private files and tried to leak them to a competitor. Neriah's stomach dropped. No. That's not. I have the records, he said quietly. I didn't go public with it because I didn't want to destroy her career. Neriah couldn't breathe. I didn't know she had a sister, he added. And I didn't know you came here to destroy me. She felt sick. I'm sorry. He looked at her, and his eyes. They weren't angry, just tired, disappointed. I meant everything I said to you. I didn't expect to feel anything, she whispered, voice cracking. But I do. He stood up, left money on the table. Then he looked back at her. I cared about you. I still do. But I don't know if I can trust you. He walked away, and Neriah sat there, shaking, realizing the worst thing of all. She didn't want to hurt him anymore. She loved him. 3 days passed. No calls. No lunch invites. Just silence. She tried to focus on work, but everything reminded her of him. His voice. His eyes. The way he made her feel seen. She finally went to him. Can we talk? She asked, standing in his doorway. He looked up. He hadn't shaved. His tie was loose, but his eyes still hit her like thunder. He nodded once. She stepped in, heart in her throat. I didn't know the truth. I believed what she told me, but I should have asked questions. He didn't speak. I came here to ruin you, but then I saw the way you treat people. The way you listen, the way you care more than you let on, and I fell for you. His expression didn't change. I'm not lying, she whispered. I love you. He looked at her for a long time, then stood, and walked around the desk. He stopped in front of her. Say it again. I love you. He reached up and cupped her face. I wanted to hate you. I know, but I couldn't stop thinking about you. She closed her eyes as he leaned in, and when he kissed her, it wasn't soft. It was everything. Raw, real, forgiving, and full of love. The city didn't pause for heartache. Traffic still snarled. Elevators still dinged. Phones still rang. But Neriah moved through it all like she was underwater. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't even look at her reflection without hearing his voice low, steady, wounded. I cared about you. I still do. But I don't know if I can trust you. She had replayed every second of that rooftop lunch in her mind. Every word, every pause. Not because she didn't remember, but because she couldn't forget. And now, the man she had thought she came to expose was the one person she couldn't stop aching for. But she had no right to feel broken. She'd crossed the line. She'd come into his world with a blade hidden behind her back. And he'd met her with nothing but honesty. There was no fixing that with apologies.
Still, she stayed.
Not out of pride. Not out of strategy. But because walking away felt like cowardice. The next morning, she arrived early. Earlier than usual. Not for him, but maybe also for him. The office was still dark, the sun slicing across the glass walls in narrow beams. She dropped her bag at her desk, powered up her screen, and tried to act like a woman with a job to do. She barely made it through 2 emails before his voice startled her. "I need you to come with me." She turned. He stood in the doorway of his office, his tie knotted tight today, his expression unreadable. She didn't ask questions, just grabbed her coat and followed him. They took the private elevator down to the garage. His driver opened the back door of a black SUV, and before she could gather her thoughts, she was seated beside him, the door closing with a dull thud. The drive was quiet. She didn't try to fill it. She had no idea where they were going, and she didn't dare ask. 15 minutes later, they pulled into a gated property on the edge of the city. Stone walls. Iron gates. No neighbors in sight. The house that rose behind it was nothing like the glass tower he worked from. This was older, rooted in the earth, with ivy crawling the walls and a gravel path that crunched beneath their shoes. "I grew up here," he said, pushing open the door. She stepped inside and froze. The walls were lined with framed photographs, none of them recent. A boy with messy hair on a tire swing. A woman in a nurse's uniform holding a baby. A man in military dress standing stiff with pride. Sterling watched her take it in. "My mother was a caregiver. My father served overseas. They died within 3 months of each other. Car accident, then cancer." She turned to him, startled by the sudden openness. "I was 22, just starting at the bottom of a finance firm. I thought I had time to fix things with them. I didn't." She swallowed hard, unsure what to say. "I brought you here because I need you to understand something," he continued. "I didn't build my company to be powerful. I built it because I was scared of being powerless again." He moved past her toward the back room. She followed. There was a small library with threadbare chairs and a fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. He stopped in front of an old, upright piano. "My mother used to play. She said music could make grief shift shape. That it didn't disappear, it just changed form." He rested his hand on the keys, but didn't press them. "I don't let many people into this place." "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned to face her fully. "Because I don't want to live in a world where I can't believe in second chances." She blinked, stunned by the weight of that. "I don't know if we can go back," he said. "But I don't want to pretend none of this happened." "I don't either." He nodded once, then stepped away. They didn't speak again until they were back in the SUV, but something between them had shifted. Not healed, not erased, but altered. Like the music his mother believed in grief changing shape. The days that followed were quiet. No declarations, no dramatic gestures. Just long glances in meetings, brief conversations in hallways, and a subtle, aching awareness that something fragile had been planted between them. And then, 2 weeks later, the foundation cracked. She was walking past the conference room when she heard her name. She stopped. Listened. "She's dangerous," a man said. "She's not who she says she is. She faked her entire resume. And she's connected to Neriah Nolan." She didn't recognize the voice, but the facts were accurate. Someone had discovered everything. She backed away, heart pounding. She didn't know who had found her out, but it didn't matter. Sterling would hear it soon. And this time, she wouldn't be able to explain her way through it. She packed her things quietly. No confrontations. Just silence. She left her badge on the desk. And she didn't look back. That night, she sat in her apartment, staring at the rain streaking the windows. She had burned every bridge. Not just with him, but with herself. She'd let bitterness write her story, and now there was nothing left but ash. A knock startled her. She rose slowly, unsure if she'd imagined it. The knock came again. She opened the door. Sterling stood there, soaked from the storm, eyes locked on hers. "You left," he said. "I had to." "No, you didn't. You were going to find out anyway." "I already knew." She stared at him, stunned. "I knew the day after the rooftop. I had someone run your file. I saw the inconsistencies." "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to see if you'd run." She wrapped her arms around herself. "And I did." He stepped inside without waiting for permission. "You think I can't tell when someone's scared?" he said. "You think I've never been lied to before? You should hate me." "I tried." She looked away. "I kept telling myself you were just another person who used me. But that's not true." He moved closer. "You didn't take anything from me. You gave me something I didn't think I'd ever get again." "What?" "Hope." She shook her head. "I don't deserve that. I'm not offering it because you deserve it. I'm offering it because I love you." Her breath caught. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "I drew up a contract," he said. Her eyes widened. "What kind of contract?" "Honesty. No games. No secrets. If we do this, it's all in." She took the paper, hands trembling. "There's no clause for revenge. No fine print for heartbreak. Just 2 signatures and a chance." She opened it. It wasn't legal. Just a handwritten list of promises.
Trust.
Transparency.
Growth.
And at the bottom, 2 blank lines. "I don't need a courtroom," he said. "I just need you to choose me. For real this time." She looked up at him, heart full and breaking all at once.
Ido.
He pulled her into his arms. And for the first time in a long time, she believed in beginnings. The pen in Neriah's hand hovered over the paper. Her name trembled in the space where it should have been written. She could hear Sterling's breath behind her, steady and close, like he was holding the moment together for both of them.
She signed.
He didn't ask for a kiss, and she didn't offer one. There was no need. The contract wasn't about passion. It was about rebuilding on ground that had already cracked beneath them once. And the only way forward was slow. 3 days later, her world shifted again. "Are you feeling okay?" her friend Eden asked over lunch, pushing a glass of ginger tea across the table. Neriah pressed her hand to her forehead. "Just tired." Eden raised an eyebrow. "You've said that every time I've seen you for the past 2 weeks. I've had a lot on my mind." Eden leaned forward. "Is it stress, or is it something else?" Neriah hesitated. She hadn't told anyone about her and Sterling. It didn't feel like something to announce. Not yet. It was still too new. Too delicate. "I'm fine," she said, forcing a smile. But by the time she got home, her stomach turned again. Not from nerves. From something different. Something deeper. She stared at herself in the bathroom mirror, her fingers gripping the sides of the sink. The realization hit her like a quiet thunder. She was late. And not by a day or 2. Her fingers trembled as she opened the cabinet. The test turned positive before she even had a chance to sit down. She sat on the edge of the tub, staring at the small strip in her hand, her breath frozen in her chest. This wasn't part of the plan. Not the old plan. Not the new one. She hadn't even told him she loved him again. Not with words. Only with presence. With the way she'd let herself stay, let herself believe that maybe, in time, they could build something honest. But now the timeline had shifted. She wasn't just learning to trust again. She was carrying the proof of something permanent. The next morning, she didn't show up at the office. Sterling called, then texted, then came to her apartment. When she opened the door, he didn't speak. He just looked at her eyes, scanning her face like he already knew something was wrong. I wasn't sure how to tell you, she said. His jaw tightened. Tell me what? She stepped aside, letting him in. She picked up the test from the counter and handed it to him. He stared at it, silent. Then looked up, his expression unreadable. You're sure? She nodded. He sat down on the edge of her couch, holding the test in his hand like it was something heavier than plastic and ink. She didn't know what to expect. Anger? Panic? Cold withdrawal? But none of that came. Instead, he set the test down carefully and looked up at her. I never had a picture of what my future would look like, he said. I stopped trying to imagine it a long time ago. Her throat tightened. But when I met you, something shifted. It wasn't clear. Just colors starting to bleed into the edges. He stood. And now this, he gestured toward the test. This isn't a mistake to me. It's not bad timing. It's just unexpected grace. She blinked, stunned. I don't want to pressure you, he continued. But I want to be part of this. Fully. Not out of duty. Out of choice. She covered her mouth with her hand. I want to raise this child with you. I want to build something together that isn't built on pain. She nodded, trying to breathe past the weight pressing against her ribs. Then the tears came silent, uninvited, cleansing. He didn't try to comfort her with words. He just held her. And for the first time in years, she let herself be held. The following week, Sterling made his first mistake. Not with her. With the board. He walked into the quarterly meeting and told them everything. Not about the pregnancy. Not about the past. But about the future. I've decided to restructure, he said, eyes scanning the long table of skeptical executives. We've built an empire that's efficient, yes. But it's hollow. I want to shift our focus. Invest in community-first ventures. Redirect a portion of profits into medical access, food security, and education in underserved cities. The room turned cold. This isn't a nonprofit, one of the senior partners snapped. You don't get to throw away profit on fairy tale ideals. Sterling didn't flinch. It's not throwing anything away. It's redirecting power to where it matters. You'll lose investors. Then I'll find new ones. You're risking everything. He nodded. I know. The meeting ended in chaos. By the next morning, the press had wind of it. By the end of the week, 2 major investors pulled out. Neriah stood in the hallway outside his office, watching through the glass as he paced, phone to his ear. She knew what this meant. They were going to come for him, and they weren't going to play fair. That night, she found him sitting in the dark, the city lights glowing behind him, his suit jacket tossed across the chair. You don't have to do this now, she said gently. You could wait a year. Build slowly. He shook his head. The moment I delay, I lose the courage to act. She sat beside him. They're going to try to destroy you. He turned to her. Let them. She frowned. I've already lost everything before, he said. I know what it feels like to rebuild from rubble. But this time you're not alone. He reached over and placed his palm gently over her belly.
No, he said.
I'm not. The next day, a scandal broke. A competitor released manipulated documents suggesting Sterling had funneled funds into illegal offshore accounts during the last acquisition phase. It was a lie, but it was calculated. The narrative took hold. And within hours, his name was trending for all the wrong reasons. Neriah watched him brace himself under the storm. He didn't hide. He called a press conference, sat down in front of cameras, answered every question with calm precision. But the doubt had already rooted itself in the public's mind. That night, she found him outside the old house he'd shown her, sitting on the porch, staring into the dark woods behind the property. She stood beside him. They're trying to destroy your legacy. He didn't look up. Then maybe it's time to build a new one. She sat beside him, resting her hand over his. Not alone, she said. He turned to her, his eyes tired but steady. I keep thinking about what kind of world I want this child to be born into, he whispered. And I can't wait for someone else to make it better. I have to start now. She nodded. And I need you, he added. Not behind me. Beside me. I'm not going anywhere. He leaned his forehead against hers. And in the silence between them, something unshakable formed. Not a perfect story, but a true one. A beginning they hadn't planned, and a future they would fight for together. The boardroom had never been louder. Not from voices, but from what wasn't being said. The silence was heavy, thick with consequence, as Sterling sat at the head of the table, his elbows on the polished oak, fingers laced, expression unreadable. Across from him, the lead corporate counsel closed the folder and set it down slowly. We've conducted our internal audit. The accusations are fabricated, yes. But the damage is already widespread. 2 of our largest clients have frozen all communications. The press is running with whatever headline sounds most catastrophic. Sterling didn't flinch. They'll return. Our books are clean. For now, the man replied. But perception builds faster than truth. And if the board loses confidence. Another voice interrupted from the far end, this one sharp and clipped. We need to consider temporary removal from the CEO's seat until the accusations are fully cleared. Sterling leaned back, jaw tight. So, you want me to step down because of a lie? No one is asking you to leave permanently, just until the investigation concludes. You'd retain all your shares. A temporary reassignment of authority would show stability to the market. You mean it would calm the investors? The man didn't deny it. Sterling glanced across the table. Who else agrees? Hands didn't raise, but the silence was its own answer. He counted the stillness. 6 allies. For who turned away when his eyes met theirs? And one who wouldn't even look up from his phone. He stood. I built this company from the ground up. I've never once skimmed a cent off the top, and every one of you knows it. But if you think pushing me out for the sake of optics is what will save this place, you're already sealing its fate. He walked out before anyone could respond. Neriah met him outside the boardroom. How bad is it? They want me to step aside. Are you going to? I might not have a choice. She followed him into his office as he pulled off his tie with one hand and tossed it on the desk. He didn't sit. He paced, eyes flicking from the window to the wall and back again. I thought truth would be enough, he muttered, more to himself than to her. It is. Just not fast enough for people who are afraid. I've kept this company stable for a decade. I've walked through economic collapses, hostile takeovers, global disruptions. But one lie, one calculated, weaponized lie, and they're ready to gut me from the inside out. She stepped in front of him. Then let them. You're not your position, Sterling. I've never been anything else. That's not true. He stopped, staring at her. You're not built from contracts and balance sheets. You're a man who still sends monthly donations to the shelter your mother volunteered at. You're the one who personally signed off on medical leave for a junior analyst's father's surgery. You're the man who looked me in the eye and said he wanted to raise a child with integrity. His chest rose, slow and tight. You're more than what they can vote out, she said. And if they do let them, you'll build again. You know how. He didn't answer, but his jaw eased slightly. That night, she sat on the floor of her apartment, knees to her chest, staring at the ultrasound photo she hadn't told him about yet. She'd gone alone, not because she didn't want him there, but because she hadn't known how to ask. The image was grainy, the outlines small but unmistakable. And then the nurse had paused. Looks like 2, she'd said, casually, like she was commenting on the weather. Neriah had blinked at the screen. 2. Twins. Her hands had gone cold. Now, sitting alone in the dark, she felt the weight of it. 2 lives. 2 heartbeats. Two futures growing inside her. She picked up her phone, then put it down again. Sterling had enough to face. She could wait. But the next morning, everything changed. She walked into the office building and immediately sensed it. An eerie hush. No chatter. No clicking heels. Just a thick, uneasy quiet. She stepped into the lobby and stopped. Security guards stood at the elevators. A man in a charcoal suit was handing out notices. Her chest tightened as he approached. "Ms. Nolan." "Yes." Effective immediately, all non-executive roles in the strategy division have been suspended pending internal review. "You're being placed on leave." She stared at the paper. "I'm not under investigation." He didn't even blink. "It's not personal. It's procedural." But she saw it in his eyes. It was absolutely personal, and Sterling was nowhere to be found. She returned home in a haze, the paper still in her hand, the words blurring. Her phone buzzed.
Again.
She let it ring. Then it buzzed again, this time, "Sterling." She answered. "I just found out," he said. "They blindsided me. I thought they only wanted you to step down. They're cutting anyone they think is loyal to me. You were first. What are you going to do?" "I'm not going to let them destroy everything we've built."
We.
His voice softened.
Yes. We.
She hesitated. "I need to see you. Come to the penthouse." "I'll be there in 20 minutes. When she arrived, his doorman already had clearance waiting. She took the elevator up in silence, her palm against her stomach. The door opened before she could knock. He stepped aside, letting her in. "I have something to show you," she said, pulling the envelope from her coat pocket. He took it, opened it, and stared at the photo inside. His hand trembled slightly. "Those are my children?" She nodded. He looked again. "There are two. Twins." He sat down hard on the edge of the couch. "I didn't want to tell you like this," she said. "Not with everything else happening." He looked up. "Are you scared?" "Yes." "Me too. But I'm not running." He stood and crossed to her. His hands framed her face, not tender but steady. "Neither am I." Later that night, he pulled out a folder from his safe. Not company files. Not legal documents. Blueprints. "A new venture," he said. "Private. Independent. Built from the ground up. I've been drawing it for months." She looked at the plans. A foundation. A wellness institute. A financial literacy division. A housing development. "It's not about profit," he said. "It's about legacy." She looked up, stunned. "You were planning this before all of this happened?" "I didn't know when or how. But I knew I couldn't spend the rest of my life fixing someone else's broken system." She traced one of the lines on the page. "It's ambitious," she said. "It has to be." He turned to her. "And I want you on the founding board. Not because you're carrying my children. Not because I trust you. But because I believe in the way you see people." Her throat tightened. "I need your voice at the table," he said. "I need your convictions. Your fire. Your clarity." She reached for his hand. "We'll build it together." He nodded. And somewhere in the distance, a new kind of future began to stir. The heat in the room pulsed like something alive. Not from temperature, but tension. Neriah stood beneath the dimmed pendant light in Sterling's penthouse office, her fingers pressed against the glass wall, watching the city blink beneath them like 1,000 eyes waiting to judge their next move. Behind her, Sterling stood with the blueprint folders spread across his desk, sleeves rolled back, jaw locked in thought. He hadn't said a word in nearly 20 minutes, not since the meeting with the private investors ended in a terse silence and half-hearted promises to circle back. "They're not going to back it," she said, finally turning to face him. "They will," he muttered, still staring at the plans. "They won't," she pressed. "Not unless you give them control. And you won't. They don't get to gatekeep the future anymore." "You say that," she said, walking closer. but they still control the money. And without funding, we have sketches and dreams and nothing else. He looked at her then, something in his expression rawer than frustration. It was fear, but not the kind he would admit out loud. They want me to compromise, he said. Gut the wellness programs, slash the housing component, cut corners until it's just another soulless initiative dressed up in PR. Neriah reached across the desk and flipped open a page he hadn't touched in weeks. It was messier than the other's handwritten notes scrawled in the margins, arrows redirecting entire sections. It was the page with her handwriting on it, too. Then we build smaller, she said. We start with what we have. We scale with integrity. You think people will come on board without guarantees? Not everyone needs guarantees. Some people just need to see it's real. He stared at her, eyes narrowed, calculating. You sound like someone who's about to make a move I won't like. I reached out to someone, she said slowly. A woman I used to consult with. She runs a community investment fund. She doesn't care about Wall Street. She cares about outcomes. You went around me? I went ahead of you. There's a difference. He leaned back, folding his arms. And what did she say? She wants to meet, but not in your boardroom. She wants to see what the first project looks like. Ground level. Sterling's jaw worked, but he didn't argue. So we give her something to see. Neriah nodded. I've already started drafting the pilot. A single property. 10 units. Renovated for transitional families. We partner with a local clinic, offer on-site counseling, job training. It's contained. Realistic. His face didn't shift, but something in his stance loosened. I'll talk to the architect tomorrow, he said. We'll need permits expedited. I'll handle the city. He looked at her again, longer this time. You've already done it, haven't you? I met with the zoning chair this morning. He exhaled through his nose, something between admiration and exasperation. You don't wait for permission. Neither do you. He stepped around the desk, closer now, his voice low. You really believe in this?
She didn't blink.
I believe in what it's becoming. He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Then let's make it impossible to ignore. The next week moved fast. Too fast. Site visits, contracts, legal reviews, meetings that bled into midnight. Sterling barely slept. Neriah didn't either. But it wasn't exhaustion that kept her up, it was awareness of how quickly everything was taking shape, and how dangerously close they were to running out of time. At her next checkup, the doctor gave her a look she hadn't expected. You're pushing too hard, the woman said gently. Your blood pressure's climbing. You need to slow down. I can't, Neriah replied. We're in the middle of a pivot. You're carrying 2 lives. If you don't slow down, your body will do it for you. She didn't argue, but she didn't promise anything either. That night, she arrived at Sterling's penthouse just after 10. He was in the kitchen, jacket off, phone pressed to his ear. She's not responding, he said into the line. I told you if she bails, the deal dies. He ended the call and looked up. She ghosted, went quiet right after we sent the revised proposal. No explanation. She's testing us. Or she's walking. Neriah grabbed a bottle of water from the counter, her hand trembling slightly. Sterling noticed. When did you last eat? I'm fine. He crossed the room. That's not what I asked. She took a breath. The doctor warned me to slow down.
He frowned.
What else did she say? That everything's progressing. But stress won't help. He stepped back. Then you're off the clock. I'm not stepping back. You're carrying twins. This isn't about stubbornness anymore. She set the bottle down harder than she meant to. I'm not fragile, Sterling. I know what's at stake. And I know what it feels like to lose everything because I wasn't paying attention. His voice cracked on the last word. The silence that followed wasn't angry, it was weighted. She walked to him, placed her palm low on his chest. You won't lose us, she said. He closed his eyes. You have no idea how much I want to believe that. Then let me show you. The next morning, she was gone before he woke up. She left a note, tucked under his phone. I'm not running. I'm clearing the field. By the time he reached the office, she'd already secured a meeting with a second investor, a tech entrepreneur turned philanthropist. Young, unpredictable, but known for backing causes other people were too afraid to touch. Sterling arrived late to the meeting, hair still damp from a rushed shower, shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Neriah didn't look up when he entered. She was mid-sentence, explaining the pilot housing program like it was already funded. The investor leaned back, arms crossed. You're not asking for a check. You're asking for a partnership. Neriah nodded. We don't need saviors. We need co-builders. Sterling slid into the seat beside her. You'll get equity, but no control. We're not compromising the model. The man smiled slowly. I like people who bet everything on principle, even when it's stupid. Sterling raised a brow. Is that a yes? It's a conditional maybe. Neriah didn't flinch. We'll take that. After the man left, Sterling turned to her. You're fearless.
I'm focused.
He reached for her hand under the table. Thank you. She didn't respond with words, just squeezed his fingers. But that night, as she stood in the bathroom again, her hands wrapped around the counter, she felt it. A sharp, pulling pain low in her abdomen. It didn't last long. Just a flash. But it was enough.
She called the clinic.
They told her to come in. The nurse ran tests. The doctor returned with concern shadowing her mouth.
You need to rest. No exceptions.
Your placenta's thinning. It's time to stop. Neriah blinked. Stop what?
Work.
Travel. Stress. Everything. She sat back, stunned. If you keep pushing, you risk preterm labor. Or worse. She didn't cry.
She didn't argue.
She just nodded. When she returned to the penthouse, Sterling was on the terrace, phone in hand, barking orders into the wind. She stepped outside, her coat still buttoned. He ended the call and looked at her. What happened? They want me off my feet. For how long? Until delivery. His expression didn't change, but his eyes did. She walked to him, placing his hand over her belly. I can't move the mission forward right now, but I need you to. He nodded slowly. I will. I mean it. Don't protect me by pulling back. Go harder. Finish what we started. He swallowed hard. Not alone. She looked up at him. Never alone. And for the first time in weeks, they both stood still. Not because the storm had passed, but because they had chosen to plant their feet in it. Together. The wind outside the nursery windows howled like it wanted in, flinging rain against the glass in sheets that blurred the skyline. Neriah sat in the rocking chair, motionless, her hands resting over the curve of her abdomen, now full and heavy with life. Books and soft blankets surrounded her, half unpacked. The room smelled faintly of cedar, the crib still unassembled in the corner. She hadn't told Sterling about the call yet. The call had come that morning, quiet and unexpected. Her phone had buzzed on the nightstand, and she'd answered without checking the name, her voice thick with sleep. The woman's voice on the other end had been calm.
Direct.
Familiar. It was Leah, her sister. Neriah hadn't heard from her in nearly a year. I saw the news, Leah said. Carrington Holdings. The investigation. The new venture. That's all you, isn't it? Neriah didn't answer. You're pregnant. I am. There had been a long pause. Is it his? I don't know what you want from me, Leah. I want to know what side you're on. I'm not playing sides anymore. Leah's voice had shifted then, hard and sharp. You think he's different?
He's not.
He just hides it better. I've seen who he is when no one's looking. You haven't. I saw enough. Neriah had ended the call after that. Not out of anger. Out of finality.
Some things didn't need to be resolved.
Some people chose to stay frozen in the version of the past that made them feel innocent. A soft knock sounded at the door now, pulling her out of memory. She didn't look up. Sterling stepped in, his coat damp from the storm, his tie still fastened, his frame tense. He said nothing at first, just stood in the doorway, watching her. "I met with the city council this afternoon," he said finally. "They're stalling again. They want to see a full year of financials before they'll approve the building permits for Phase 2. "They're afraid," she replied. "You're moving faster than the system allows. It's not just fear. It's sabotage. Someone's feeding them doubts." She looked at him then. "You think it's internal?" "I know it is." One of the original board members from Carrington Holdings still has connections inside the city zoning office. This isn't about paperwork. It's about leverage. She stood, crossing slowly to the dresser, her posture rigid. "Leah called me." He stiffened. What did she want? "To remind me who I used to be." He walked farther into the room, his shoes silent against the nursery's soft rug. "Do you believe her now?" "I believe she's stuck. And I believe I'm not." He exhaled through his nose, the tension in his shoulders slowly releasing. "I'm sorry," she reached out. "I'm not. It reminded me how far I've come." She turned to face him. "But you need to be careful, Sterling. If someone from your past is still trying to dismantle what you're building, they'll go after the softest point." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "They'll come for your reputation. Again. But this time, they won't use fake documents. They'll use truth twisted just enough to look like betrayal." He crossed to her and gently cupped her face, his thumb brushing just below her eye. "No one's taking this from us," he said. "Not again." The next morning, he was gone before she woke. A note left on the kitchen counter read, "Meeting with the investor. Back by lunch.
Rest. No exceptions."
She smiled faintly, tracing the ink with her finger. By noon, he hadn't returned. By 2, his phone went straight to voicemail. By 4, the news broke. Video footage had surfaced. Grainy, taken from a hidden angle inside a luxury hotel suite. Sterling seated at a table with a woman Neriah didn't recognize. Money on the table. A contract. His voice low, calm, clipped. The headlines spread faster than wildfire. Carrington. Bribes for permits? New foundation. Old tactics? Neriah stared at the screen, her pulse thudding in her ears. The footage wasn't recent. She could tell from his hair, from the watch he no longer wore. But it didn't matter. The press didn't care. The damage was immediate.
Her phone rang.
She ignored it. The screen lit with messages. She silenced it. She sat down slowly, her hand pressed against her stomach. He hadn't told her. An hour later, the door opened. He stood there, soaked, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. "I tried to get ahead of it," he said. They moved faster.
She didn't speak.
He stepped farther into the room. "It's from 4 years ago. Before you. Before everything. I was trying to push a real estate deal through a corrupt zoning board. I offered a financial incentive to expedite permits. It was legal.
Barely.
But it was still wrong. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I buried it. And I thought it would stay buried." She stood slowly, walking toward the window. The city was still drowning in rain.
"I can take it," she said.
"The headlines. The backlash. But I can't take lies from you. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you. That's a difference without a distinction." He crossed to her. "I'm not that man anymore. I know that. Then why do you look like I just broke something we can't fix?" She turned, her eyes full. "Because I'm afraid I believed in something too soon." He reached for her, but she stepped back. "Not far. Just enough." "I need time," she whispered. He nodded once. "I'll give you whatever you need." He left without another word. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat in the nursery again, staring at the half-assembled crib, the unopened boxes, the quiet hum of a life waiting to be born. In the morning, she called the city office herself. She asked for a meeting, and they gave her one. 3 days later, she walked into the marble-faced building alone, a folder tucked beneath her arm. No press. No entourage. Just resolve. The commissioner, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a reputation for integrity, waited across the table. "You're here to defend him," the woman said. Neriah sat. "I'm here to defend the truth." The woman raised a brow. "You're not his legal counsel. I'm his partner, and the mother of his children, and someone who knows what it costs to rebuild a name that's been dragged through mud." The woman folded her hands. "Say what you came to say." Neriah opened the folder. "These are the financials. The original footage was edited. Here's the full version." She slid over a USB. "And this," she continued, pulling out blueprints, "is the pilot housing project. The one your office is stalling. It's already funded, inspected, approved by the community board. All we need is your signature." The commissioner didn't speak. Neriah leaned forward. "This isn't about Sterling Carrington anymore. This is about children who need beds, families who need shelter, and a city that needs to prove it can still do the right thing." The woman held her gaze for a long moment, then took the folder. "I'll review it." Neriah stood. "You have my number." She walked out without looking back. That night, Sterling was waiting in the nursery. She paused in the doorway, her coat still buttoned, the rain clinging to her hair like a second skin. "You went to them," he said quietly. "I did." He nodded. "What happens now?" "We wait." She crossed to him, slowly, deliberately. "And while we wait," she said, "we finish this crib." He blinked. "You want to build it now?" "Yes." "Together?" She unfolded the instructions. "We've already built something harder." He knelt beside her, opening the box. And piece by piece, they built a place for their children to sleep. Not in silence, not in fear, but in the middle of a storm, with hearts still bruised and hands still steady. The real beginning hadn't happened when they met. It was happening now. The sun filtered through the nursery curtains in pale gold ribbons, casting light across the finished crib and the half-folded baby clothes on the changing table. Neriah sat beside the window, legs tucked under her, one hand resting gently over her belly. The babies kicked with rhythmic urgency, as if they knew something was shifting. And something had. 2 days after her meeting with the zoning commissioner, an envelope arrived by courier. Inside was a single sheet of paper signed, notarized, and stamped with approval for the Foundation's housing project.
No dirás.
No conditions. She hadn't called Sterling right away. She wanted to give him something he hadn't had in a long time, a win that didn't require a fight. Now, as the elevator chimed and the penthouse door opened, she stayed seated, waiting for his footsteps to cross the threshold. He found her in the nursery, his hair damp from the cold, his coat still hanging open. "I saw the envelope," he said. She looked up at him. "You're welcome." He stepped in slowly, as if he wasn't sure whether to sit or fall to his knees. They approved it without a hearing? They read the documents, watched the untouched footage, saw the numbers. Then they signed. He leaned against the crib, hands braced on either side of the wooden frame. "I thought I'd have to sue the city. Or burn it down. You didn't. Because you let someone else stand in the fire." He looked over at her, something unspoken passing between them. Something soft, deep, earned. "I've never had anyone protect me like that," he said. "You've spent your whole life protecting everyone else," she replied. "It's time someone returned the favor." He pushed off the crib and crossed to her. "I don't say this lightly," he murmured, "but I can't imagine any version of my life where you're not in it." She tilted her head. "Any version?" "Even the ones where I lose everything. Especially those." She smiled, the kind that came from the marrow, not the mouth. Then, maybe it's time to stop imagining and start deciding. He reached into his coat pocket. Not hurried, not dramatic, just quiet, certain motion. She froze as he knelt, not out of surprise, but reverence. I don't want a ceremony to fix our story, he said. I want a covenant to carry it forward. He opened the ring box. The diamond was modest, shield-shaped, set in brushed gold. It didn't sparkle, it glowed. I want to build a family with you. Raise our children with truth. Show them what it means for two people to choose each other over and over again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. He looked up, eyes steady. Will you marry me, Neriah Nolan? She didn't cry. She laughed. One sharp, breathless sound. Of course I will, she whispered. He slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her hand. She pulled him up, and when they stood nose to nose, she whispered against his mouth, You took long enough. Their wedding was quiet. No photographers. No press. Just a small garden behind a chapel in the neighborhood where Sterling's mother once volunteered. The ceremony took place beneath a canopy of white wisteria. Eden held Neriah's bouquet. Sterling wore a charcoal suit without a tie. The vows were handwritten, exchanged in voices that shook but didn't falter. Afterwards, they didn't host a reception. They walked hand in hand to the sidewalk, climbed into a waiting car, and disappeared into the city, like two people who had nothing left to prove. The twins came early, but not dangerously so. A boy and a girl. Ezra and Selah. Born within minutes of each other, lungs strong, hands curled into tiny fists as if they'd fought their way into the world together. Sterling held his daughter first. Neriah held her son. Then they traded, laughing through tears, the exhaustion of delivery eclipsed by the wonder of watching something they'd made together take its first breath. At home, the nursery felt different now.
Lived in. Real.
The mobile above the crib spun slowly, casting soft spinning shadows across the walls. Neriah sat in the rocker, Ezra asleep against her chest. Sterling stood with Selah cradled in one arm, reading softly from a worn children's book. He paused mid-sentence. She has your eyes, he said. Neriah looked up. And your nose. She's going to change the world, he said. She already changed ours. He looked around the nursery, then down at the baby in his arms. There's something I haven't told you. She raised an eyebrow. I filed the final paperwork yesterday, he continued. Carrington Holdings is no longer under my name. She blinked. You sold it. I gave it away. To a trust. The profits will fund the foundation. No more board. No more shareholders. Just purpose. He turned toward her, eyes steady. I don't want to spend the rest of my life defending a name I don't believe in anymore. What do you believe in? He walked to her, kissed her forehead, and whispered, Us. Spring came early that year. The pilot housing development opened in March, with 10 renovated units already occupied by families who'd once been on waiting lists for years. Sterling and Neriah stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony with the twins in slings against their chests, surrounded by a crowd of volunteers, neighbors, and city officials. The commissioner who once doubted them now stood beside them, offering a check and a public endorsement. Sterling said nothing to the cameras. He just held Neriah's hand. Later that night, after the twins had fallen asleep, they stood on the rooftop of the new foundation building. The city stretched out in golden light, alive and endless. I used to think legacy was about power, he said. Now I know it's about people. She leaned into him. It's about love. They stood in silence for a while, letting the wind wrap around them like a benediction. Downstairs, the foundation's lights flickered on. Community members gathered for the first financial literacy workshop. Across town, construction broke ground on the second phase of housing. And in their home, 2 cribs stood side by side, waiting for the next morning's laughter. Neriah turned to him. Do you think we'll ever stop building? He kissed her temple. I hope not. Because some love stories don't end. They just deepen. And some legacies aren't left behind. They are lived. Together.